Hello and welcome to this episode of Point Counterpoint. As always, we are here to discuss and deliberate on topics that are very important to Goa and Goans. But the subject we have at hand is an ongoing subject of pain, of disappointment and of loss. And this is not any major natural tragedy that has happened. This is not about any destruction or an earthquake or war, but probably a tragedy which is far more deep and intrinsic. And the tragedy is the loss of our land, our culture, livelihoods as well, because they are all linked, and ultimately our identity. Over a period of time, we witnessed a state-sponsored destruction of our environment, our ecology, our rivers, our hill slopes and our fields and so on and so forth. The topic we have here is sensitive and direct, and we are asking a fundamental question. Are politicians signing the environmental death warrant of Goa? Have they become the biggest enemies of our environment? Are they purposely and deliberately bypassing and destroying the very laws that are there to protect our environment and ecology? If there are eco-sensitive zones, why are politicians against it? If there are eco-sensitive areas which need to be identified as a part of a notification, why are politicians against it? Why did a particular minister go to the extent of mobilizing his people to march against eco-sensitive zones when he was not even aware that a committee that was here in Goa, in front of whom he wanted the people to protest, were not even here to discuss eco-sensitive zones but eco-sensitive areas, and we'll get into the difference between the two. The point being, why are the shoulders of gullible Goans being used to sing the mantra of quote-unquote development, which and this version of development is fundamentally against the interests of Goa. These are things that it's not something we are saying or I am saying. This is there for all to see, and one will be surprised to know that about a couple of weeks ago, the Goa State Biodiversity Board wanted to have a series of meetings with the village biodiversity management committees, the BMCs, to essentially speak about various issues of environment, planning, village development. And what is interesting here is that there was an absolute, literally a mini uprising of people who questioned the Goa Biodiversity Board, saying, why are you coming to us to talk to us about ecology and environment and how we need to protect our villages? Why don't you go and say this to politicians who are the biggest enemies of all this? And the issue is the Goa Diversity Board chairman actually had to admit that this anger was very palpable. So to discuss all this, and it's a broad topic, we will dip into various aspects of it, and we are looking at it because ultimately we need to figure out whether this version of development should be allowed to continue or not. B, how people need to be far more educated and responsible. And C, ultimately, whether people will take that plunge and ensure that all our development does not get crushed at the altar of greed. Because what is really happening is that instead of planning becoming the center of all our existence and our governance, greed has become the center of all our existence and governance, and so-called planning is curated around that greed to feed that greed. And I think this is what we need to kind of discuss and deliberate, and we have the best minds here. Unfortunately, the government refused to send a representative or the party to this. It is disappointing because one would have understood or tried to understand and even appreciate, if that was the case, the government's point of view, if there was any justification or any pattern to these charges that we are ultimately laying out. I'll introduce the panel. Claude Alvarez, Director, Goa Foundation, needs no further introduction. Ravindra Velip, who is the Vice President of the Gakuved Foundation, works extensively with tribals and knows the forests and issues at the back of his hand. And Sauter D'Souza is a very senior columnist, writer, and with a deep knowledge of the local self-development and panchayats, having worked and written about it extensively. Claude, I have no further questions. I'd just like you to take off from where I left off and deliberate on some of the points that I've raised.
Yeah, I think we can just begin with the present controversy, which has been whether Goa should have ecologically sensitive areas or not. And the Chief Minister's recent statement that out of 99 villages, at least 40 of them should be excluded from the list of environmentally sensitive areas as given in the central government notification. Even today, even with the Panchayati Raj, 73rd Constitution Amendment Act, etc., is the Chief Minister who is still deciding the fate of 40 villages. My question to him is, why do you continue to decide the fate of the Goan villages? You are saying that there are competent people there, you have elected, there are sarpanchas, there are panchas, there are educated people there, there are so many committees in the panchayats, and the panchayat is also defined as part of state under Article 21 of the Constitution. If you look at the Article 21 of the Constitution, state is defined in terms of central government, state government and local self-government. So it is not that only the central government is important and state government is important and local self-government nothing. Local self-government is defined in the Constitution of India as part of state. So a local self-government, which is a panchayat, should have responsibility, should have given the total responsibility to decide whether they want to be part of an ESA or not. If they say we want to be part of an ESA, then you include them. But why is the Chief Minister deciding that 40 people don't meet, 40 panchayats don't meet the criteria given in the Kasturi Rangan report, and therefore they should be excluded? We should leave the freedom to every panchayat to join the ESA, because the ESA is a good thing for Goa, because wherever there is an ESA, Goa will remain. If there is no ESA, there will be no Goa, because everything and anything will be allowed there. And our experience is like Pedne is a very classic case. Once you allowed the airport, you allowed the destruction of Pedne, you permitted the handover of Pedne's resources, the resources on which very ordinary people survive. And you took them and you have given them to Delton and you have given them to Ganga Reddy and you have given them to a whole lot of people who are such influential people. They have got so much of money, they are such heavy money bags that there is no way that the government is going to listen to ordinary villagers anymore.
Right.
So Pedne is a very classic case. Now you want to do it everywhere. All that the notification says is, Baba, in these villages, you don't come with your mining, you don't come with your thermal power plant, you don't come with your cement plant, and you don't come with any of the red category industries which are highly polluting, you don't bring them here. That is all that the notification is saying. And that is the notification which will protect every village of Goa. Forget about only
it is still a draft. It'll full notifications are awaited here.
So Joy, it has been a draft for 5 times.
Exactly.
It has been notified 5 times.
Correct.
The government is still not willing to. And this opposition manufactured by people who do not understand what is at stake.
Correct.
This opposition will be used by the central government to say there is no need for this notification.
Correct.
That is the problem.
Yeah, for the benefit of the viewers, the Kastirangan committee identified villages that need to be under eco-sensitive areas, to keep the Western Ghats pristine and ecologically alive. So the issue here is that ultimately these are villages, and what Claude is also saying is that the state government is repeatedly trying to whittle down the number of villages that need to be under these eco-sensitive areas. But Claude, my other question before I go to Ravindra and Sauter is that the strange reaction that came from the Minister Subhash Phaldesai was basically instigate the people into saying and telling them that this is your last opportunity to prevent your village to become a, of course he used the word eco-sensitive zone, he probably meant ESA, we don't know what he meant, but broadly let's take it as that. And telling them that your livelihoods, you will not be able to enter your own houses. Now that is very, very misleading and dangerously misleading.
No, I brought the notification along.
Yeah.
And the notification actually is very clear. No mining, no thermal power plants, all red category industries banned, which is highly polluting.
Right.
Building construction below 20,000 square meters permitted. Please note, building construction, new building construction below 20,000 square meters permitted, above 20,000 meters banned. And it says that you will be allowed to, there is no restriction on repair or extension or renovation of existing residential houses. And then it says even all healthcare establishments, primary health centers, hospitals, everything is permitted which would be of great use to the people living there. Agriculture is permitted, farming is permitted, horticulture is permitted, all the industries which are in the EIA notification except the red category industries are permitted in this area. So what can be the objection?
We would really like Minister Faldesai to respond to this. At the end of the day, what do you have to say here? Because your statement.
That's the reason why he has not come today.
Absolutely. The issue here is we ask the government to come, and that answer needs to be given. When it is clear that the notification does not in any way affect your lives and livelihoods, why are you doing this anyway? We'll come back to this later. Ravindra, my question to you is that you worked with the tribals a lot and you know the issue inside out. The constant narrative that is being put forward is that tribal interests will get affected the moment you have eco-sensitive zones or eco-sensitive areas coming in. And the tribals will not be allowed to do any work, their livelihoods will get impacted, they will not have any access to forest resources. And there are people within your community also who are backing this move as well. So what do you have to say to this?
See, basically at this moment what I have to say is that because Cloud almost have covered all the legal aspects.
Right.
Because in the notification, it has never said that you cannot do constructions, you cannot do engage into farming. There will be restrictions. Maybe because I feel that there is no proper awareness. Because I think the people who are opposing this need to go through the draft, which is available on the internet. And secondly, I think maybe because they have been threatened, like means they will their movements will be restricted. More control will be given to the forest departments. Maybe because of forest, but since the inception of the Indian Forest Act, that is from 1961 in Goa, the forest department must have failed to gain that trust from the communities living in these villages.
Right.
So because of this, I think their views can be easily manipulated. Maybe because of that, and I feel that because see, we are having Biodiversity Act, we are having Forest Rights Act. But when we ask about our implementation, what is the status? Just day before yesterday, we had a meeting with district level committee, which was headed by the collector.
Right.
So they are only looking at the numbers. There is no attempt made since last 10 years to identify the community forest rights of these villages.
Right.
So maybe because if these eco-sensitive areas are notified, then there will be restrictions. And if you go through the list of the villages, most of the villages they are coming under the mining areas like Rivona, like then we are having Kolem and all.
Correct.
I think because of this, if this is allowed, then there will be heavy restrictions.
No, and the laughable irony here is that the government has not identified the rights of people in the forest areas. They have continuously failed, and they're using that as an excuse to not notify the tiger reserve.
Definitely.
Yes. The other quick issue here is that also, don't you feel, and I'll ask sort of the same question, that ultimately the biggest failure has been that you're not allowing the villages and the village panchayats and the village level bodies to do their own village level planning. Yes. Ultimately, the planning has to be decentralized in letter and spirit. The issue is that why should we have other departments and others deciding on the fate of it? So village level planning has completely gone, and especially with regard to tribals in forest areas.
Yeah. So this is what I feel, that the plannings and this decision making should be given to the Gram Sabhas. So at least I think the before that, see what happens in the Gram Sabha. Most of the Gram Sabhas, they send people, they control the Gram Sabhas, they pass the resolution. It should not be like that.
Right.
So prior to that, proper awareness should be made. All the NGOs or maybe tribal NGOs who are working for the welfare of the people should be taken into confidence. Maybe tribal welfare department can be engaged into, and considering all the things, a proper awareness or proper clarity should be given to the people, because what I feel is that what I have seen on the recent newspapers is that people going there submitting objections and they don't know why the committee has come there. So I think that there was no clarity and they were just simply misguided. This statement I will make.
Sort of the thing is, you see all that. Look at all the acts that are there to ostensibly protect Goa and any other state. You have the Goa Coastal Zone Management, GCZMA. You of course, you have the CRZs as an extension. You have eco-sensitive zones. You have eco-sensitive areas. You have other environmental laws, coastal laws, and so on and so forth. Now, all these laws, including forest acts and others, are meant to be enabling acts to enable the protection of not just Goa's environment but Goa as a whole. Why does it seem right now that all these acts are seen as detrimental to so-called development? And what is even worse is, or even more dangerous and sad and disappointing is, that politicians are basically looking at these acts as enemies, as enemy acts, rather than acts that are supposed to be friends of Goa to enable Goa's protection.
So, Joy, I think we need to understand one thing. There are many acts, but are these acts finally converging, or are they remaining compartmentalized, segmentized?
Correct.
Okay, because recently someone asked a wonderful question to all the people who are talking about agriculture policy.
Right.
Okay, what is the word? How is the word agriculture, term agriculture, defined in the other related acts?
Right.
Have you all studied that under soil conservation, under forest, under this? So each act has a different definition. Okay. And then one act you are blocked, you use the other act. So various channels, this thing have been kept. None of these acts under 243 and I think of the Constitution, there's all these acts and laws were supposed to be made in consonance with the 73rd and 74th Amendment.
Right.
That has not been done.
Yeah.
Okay. Each of these acts are being operated by independent government agencies. Okay. And finally not by the panchayat. So all this biodiversity, including your village plans, the village plan is not made under the Panchayat Act. It is for the Finance Commission, Central Finance Commission, for their purpose.
Right.
This is not the same village act which was talked about in Article 243ZD.
Right. Right.
Okay. See, basically, we can talk about this till the cows come home, and several debates you have been holding here. Over the years, even Claude has been fighting, but ultimately, environment, what we are seeing in the environment field is just one of the aspects. Basically, there is a erosion of conscience, and basically there is a moral corrosion also in the public. So basically, over these years, because of corrupt politics, okay, even the public cannot decide, what is right, what is wrong, or what is fair and what is unjust. They don't know. Okay. Basically, I have worked in the field of addiction. You cannot reason with drug addicts or alcoholics. Okay. So we are dealing with power addicts and money addicts here. They don't understand unless they learn it the hard way. Like in Karnataka, where the government was defeated.
Right.
You see, you play the fool. That fear, I feel, is not there in Goa. By the arrogance of certain ministers and certain politicians, the way they are talking, people just don't matter. Who are you? They are asking the people. We are the people who elect them, but they get elected and ask you, who are you? Okay. If people question the acts, what is your professional competence? So when a politician gets the mobs to run down the ESA, that time they become professionally competent. When it's going against the politician, the same people become professionally incompetent. So you see this contradiction that is happening. Okay, we are no more, the politicians are no more concerned about eco-sensitive areas. There is only one thing is electoral bonds and electorally sensitive areas. Ultimately, they will compromise on anything at any cost, you know, to get elected. Unfortunately, our Goans have not learnt from the lessons, from the recent lessons in Badrinath, Joshimath, Sikkim, Arunachal Pradesh, okay, where now the mountains are crumbling down.
Right.
Okay. It's a bizarre logic where certain even persons in biodiversity, you know, are justifying trees cut down in Mopa are being, planted somewhere else as a compensatory this.
Like a
Mopa
TDR.
is Mopa. You cannot. So tomorrow you will say we are going to relocate the
Correct.
Western Ghats to the coastal area. So we scrap the Western Ghats. We will start building a Western Ghats. Can you do it? Does nature function like this? Are you playing God?
Correct.
And
Correct.
finally, how many PILs by Claude will be required to bring sense in this government? Okay. How many PILs will be required? People sacrificing their hard-earned money. They elect a government, they spend their money now to file PILs, and government defends against those PILs from people's money only, public.
Correct.
Okay. And can you imagine a person saying that is too much of democracy? Minister saying there's too much of democracy, and even after getting a verdict by PIL, the government is challenging that verdict of the court in the Supreme Court, and people are watching.
You are talking of the Tiger Reserve.
Of the Tiger Reserve,
Yes.
and people are watching. This
Right.
was enough of a cause for people to say, get down. You are not representing us.
Claude, would you like to comment on this, on the last part, on this whole challenge to the Tiger Reserve?
See, I don't. Tiger Reserve is an issue that is now before the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court has fixed the 10th or 11th of November to hear the matter. They have asked the central government for their point of view, and they will take a call on it. I don't see that there is going to be any difficulty in eventually the reserve being notified. Right now, who is opposing it? Basically, it is only one family which is opposing it. And again, just like Mr. Faldesa has done in South Goa, Mr. Rane has done the same thing in Sattari by telling people that the Tiger Reserve is going to lead to thousands of people. That is, his wife Devya Rani also said 15,000 people will have to go from the sanctuary. But when you look at it, today it's a wildlife sanctuary. You cannot do anything about wildlife sanctuary. If you are living in a wildlife sanctuary, you have only one option, which is a highly restricted existence or get out of the wildlife sanctuary. That is the only option, because wildlife law is like that. Now, because of this, the central government came out with the concept of the Tiger Reserve. Now, the Tiger Reserve is no longer a sanctuary like, from one end to the other. A Tiger Reserve breaks up into two pieces. One is the core area and one is the buffer area. Now, in this Tiger Reserve, those people who are living in the buffer area, they continue to live there. Their future is no longer compromised. I mean, they don't have to shift out. Not only that, as everybody knows now, tiger tourism is a very big thing in the country. Similarly, all the people residing in buffer zones of the Tiger Reserve automatically get priority in terms of the advantages of a Tiger Reserve, because the entire tourism industry can be based only on them.
In the buffer zones.
Because new people cannot come inside.
Right.
So they are exclusively there. It is the whole sort of golden egg is falling into their pockets, and yet the minister says that 15,000 of you will have to leave. Just like Mr. Faldesa was saying that you will not be able to enter your house. So these are, I don't know why.
Ostensibly, what will the benefit be for the tiger reserve not to happen to those who are blocking the tiger reserve?
It will be worse because one day they will have to leave the place.
No, what will politicians benefit ostensibly by not making it into a reserve? How do they gain by not making it into a reserve?
See, politicians don't want any interference with their fiefdom. That is the problem. It is in many other places politicians come and go, but in the case of the tiger reserve, there has been only one family which has ruled the roost, and they have ruled it in a very ruthless fashion. They don't allow any democracy, any dissent. They don't allow anybody to even come up in life, in terms of getting into high positions of government or whatever it is. It's a very tightly controlled, fiefdom. In the earlier version, it's called a mokashe, but basically it is a very tightly controlled field. So any change in this, tiger reserve would go, the administration would go back to the central government, because the National Tiger Conservation Authority, which would be in charge, they would see that all the principles, procedures as related to tiger reserve, the guidelines that are laid down, there are several guidelines laid down.
Right.
As you look at the Wildlife Act, 3/4 of the act is only on tiger management of tiger sanctuaries. So it's a very elaborate thing. That whole area goes out of the jurisdiction of the ruling family, and that may be more worrisome than anything else, because then what do? You are no longer the king in your mokashe,
Right.
So you may have to go.
Ravindraji,
Yes.
a quick question on the issues concerning the IITs. The reason I'm asking you is that in that whole belt, now the latest focus is now remote. Don't you feel that from the time this whole IIT project has come in, instead of finding a land which is suitable for IIT properly, everywhere where the IIT land has been identified, that it is essentially in conflict with what people want, because either they are agricultural lands or they are lands on which people actually farming. In Sangay, we had a situation where people said that they are lands on which farming was taking place.
Yes.
So the point here is that even, of course, in Rivon they have bypassed that very interestingly by picking up private land and land which belongs to somebody else.
Yes.
But ultimately it is private land, but it was agricultural land.
Yes.
And at the same time, the issue is there are tenants who work on many of these lands. The
Yes.
landowners are no longer interested. So the deals are happening with the landowners directly for purchase of land. Just a little bit on your point of view on these things.
See, basically it's all about the land. So that's the reason, because see, Goa is a very small state, and everybody is after the land. So basically what is happening is that we Gakwe Federation have been demanding to identify the scheduled areas as per the 5th schedule of the Indian Constitution,
Right.
which has never been done.
Right.
Because see, if these areas where the tribals are living, because that where the land where the IIT is being proposed, I think the entire land, mostly more than 90% land, it is surrounded by the tribals. So that means if these scheduled areas were identified much before, then there could have been opinion from the Gram Sabha,
Very important point.
that whether you need that IIT in that particular land or not. But as far as I know, that people, I don't know whether it was placed in the Gram Sabha or not, Panchayat Gram Sabha or not. But once this IIT comes in, so people say that it is a education institute, we should not oppose and all. But what will happen to the surrounding areas? That is the question mark. Because very next to that area, there is a perennial stream flowing in,
Right.
which is the feeding source of the Kushavati river. So have those, and apart from that, there is a mine which was initially leased out to the Dinar Dargar, so Mindscape Minerals Private Limited. So I think right now there is I have been informed that there is a tussle between these both two, but neither means both the projects are actually affecting the communities. But I am more worried about what will happen maybe after 25 years or 50 years, maybe after 100 years, to those 2 or 3 villages who are settled there. What will be the future of their traditions? Okay, So because over the decades, I think we have lost that connect between the human beings and the rivers, human beings and the forest, human beings and the mountain. Because over the centuries, we have humans, wildlife and this forest coexisted.
Right.
So I think unless and until we remove this greed of power, money, and we go back to our go back to our ancestors, how they used to live, I think the future is very difficult. Because if you just go on the Google Earth and change the date to 2002 and just have a look on the picture of Goa, what we have done to Goa over the decade of
Very
over the
important
2
point.
decades.
Yes, very,
So
very
I think present young generation, present, because we say that Goa is literate, Goa has 89% of literacy. I think youth should at least go on the Google Earth and check what we have done to the Goa.
What has that literacy done?
Yes.
Yeah, correct.
Definitely.
I think it's very important to contrast our literacy levels with the Google map to see where we have gone. That is a real test of our literacy. Sort of very important points that Ravindra made, and all of us will obviously concur with that. One interesting thing I was discussing before we started. See, recently I was mentioning that there was this meeting of the Goa Biodiversity Board with all the biodiversity management committees, and interestingly, people in the villages decided to actually speak out openly, and they told the Goa Biodiversity Board that you can come to us and tell us what to do, how to protect our environment, how to protect our rivers, but it is like, there is really no point speaking to us, because ultimately you need to go back to the government and preach the same things to them, and the Goa Biodiversity Board had no option but to agree that yes, what they are saying, there is a reasoning behind this. So but that is one part. You have people who speak against this. But is this disappointment translating into the manner in which people ultimately vote? Because what is going to happen is, it is not about one government or the other government. It is not as if one particular government has really kind of protected the environment like a parent and protected. The degradation has happened over the years, cutting across governments, and now you do not know who belongs to any party anyway. Everybody has become agnostic to political parties and completely a bhakt of greed. So the issue here is that while we have people raising voices like this, ultimately there is no coercive movement in making environment a mandate for election when you come to vote.
Yes. See, a lot of these issues today, finally in the election, somehow they get drowned.
Right.
Okay. In the election, Rahul Gandhi will be attacked, someone else will be attacked, and the actual culprits who have been making people's life miserable,
Right.
okay, those culprits never figure in the debates.
Right.
I think also as civil society groups, we have failed basically also equally, I think, to educate people on democracy, on what is their role. Okay. You will see also in Panchayati Raj, training for elected Panchayat representatives by GIPAD, the Goa Institute for Panchayati Raj. Have you heard about training sessions for the Gram Sabha members? That is not there. People don't know what are their powers. Okay. What Mr. Velip is talking about the tribal areas under PESA, basically, in my opinion, which I stated almost 2 decades back, after Zuari River, the whole of South Goa should have been declared under PESA because of the tribal population.
Could you explain that a little bit for our viewers?
Yeah, that is the
PESA
Panchayat Extension of Scheduled Areas Act.
Panchayat extension to the scheduled areas.
Yeah,
Right.
That's where the Gram Sabhas are ultimate. And somehow, unfortunately, there was neither the tribals were educated enough to, at that time when 1992-93, when the 73rd amendment was passed to the constitution, they also were not aware about what are their this thing. Now of late they have been, but by the time the devastation has already started.
But the PESA is not applicable anyway, right?
It is.
No, it can be made
That's how in
applicable.
Orissa and all these mines have been stopped. The councils are supreme.
See, if that was applicable, even something like the draconian major ports bill, which made
Yes.
the MP into an
Just-
authority,
I'll just
that
interrupt you,
itself
sir.
could have been stopped. Because
That can be made applicable only when scheduled areas are notified.
right.
Yes.
So it is applicable only to the scheduled areas.
So scheduled areas are not notified in
Not-
Goa.
In Goa, 63 villages, tribal villages can be actually notified as
Yes.
scheduled areas, and after that this PESA can be made applicable. So this is the actually.
But tell us
constitutional
about this
provisions.
journey. Has there been any movement regarding it? Has there
No.
been any fight about it? Has there been
No,
has any
no.
party even decided to or expressed a desire to do it?
Actually, see, long back, some person, I don't remember his name, had approached to the High Court,
Yeah.
and wherein I think some directions were issued to the state government, but nothing happened after that. But as far as because we are also working on that, but it is a see, it's a government will is required. So because it comes under directly under the President of India.
Right.
So proposal has to go from the state government, and it has to be notified by the central government. And no efforts are made because we are trying to convince. I think we have written. Gakubed has written 2 or 3 times to the state government, but nothing seriousness. Just like how
No, see, the
negligence
summons
is
substance
done.
Meanwhile, what is happening, Sujoy? You know, in this lapse that is there, through conversions in the saying, they are trying to infiltrate people from other castes into those areas and neutralize the scheduled castes and scheduled tribes which are there.
Right.
You see, so that is also part of
So
the
obviously then
indirect plan.
So
which is
this
there.
all boils down to the fact that you cannot just do lip service to tribal issues by giving
Yes.
them reservations.
Yes.
There needs to be practical legislations made to ultimately
So that is
stop
why I
this.
said it requires 2 hands to clap.
Correct.
We cannot just say politicians are doing it.
Correct.
We have allowed them to do it. And
Correct.
this is what Gandhi said.
Correct.
The British are not ruling over us. We have allowed the British to rule over
Correct.
us.
Correct.
And this is exactly what is going on.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Correct.
We are become, as you said, do you see this pain and anger in the Goans? We are in our festa mood only. Okay. Every day there is some feast, dance, this. Do you see this pain and anger in the saying people should have started mourning in Goa. Everyone should have been starting wearing black. Okay. So these tourists should have been only seeing black coffins everywhere. Okay. This is the state. This state is dead. It's only a casino where money speaks. One person makes money, one person loses money and suicides. This is the ultimate thing that is there in Goa. We have attracted all the curses from families, who have spent their money on alcohol. Husbands have spent this thing in casinos. They have blown up their money. Families are crying, but these curses we are taking on us. You see, and we don't. Unfortunately, religions are quiet. Okay, we are doing Matyeche fest, Ponsache fest, but the whole issue, we are not attacking the system which is in place and forcing a change.
Right. Claude, this is the quick last round. Now the issue is that do you see any hope at the end of the tunnel? Because see, you are a crusader. You're still going on fighting. The issue is that you obviously see some hope and some systems kicking in. What keeps you going?
It's not what keeps me going. If you look at despite the pessimism of Sota, the fact is that it's a series of ups and downs. Now, when Biswajit Rane brought in 17.2, we moved the court, we caused problems there. Then he went into zoning plans for Pedne. The whole of Pedne erupted in 3 days, which means that there is a huge reservoir of potential resistance to all this nonsense in the population. Before that, where have you heard of a tribal community like the people in Melauli can defeat a powerful institution like the IIT with the ruling elite from Sattari? But that happened. From DuPont, from every time we have seen this, people in Goa have always come to the front, raised a rebellion and fought. It's not NGOs. Goa Foundation may file something in a court here and there, but the real resistance has always come from this type of protest, and it from what I can see, it has been consistent. It has to move. I mean, there are a lot of enabling laws, and there are a lot of things that can happen. Like PESA is a very good enabling law, and there's the ESA is a very good enabling law. If all these things like Panchayati Raj is also still a very enabling law, if all these people understand the potential in all these laws and how many rights it gives them, there is a chance that we can save at least 99 villages or some other area or whatever before it goes into somebody else's
Lord,
hands.
there cannot be any doubt to what you're saying, except there's just one question that one needs to ask, that when it comes to ultimately the greatest democratic exercise, voting, at that point of time, are the same people who are expressing this anger and coming out, which is leading to it, is it leading to bringing in a pro-people and a pro-environment regime? That is the question.
So I have no interest in electoral politics.
I understand that.
At all.
But the point is, electoral
Because
politics, see, if you need a regime that is
Ultimately-
pro-people, it has to be done
See,
through electoral. You can't wish away elections. Because it's part of your democracy.
that is one point of view, electoral politics, but electoral politics has given us the Pedner zoning plans and they got kicked in the backside. So I am saying that the public must always be a strong countervailing force. And in Goa, from the Konkani agitation, from Zuari, from so many other things, the public has always remained very strong. Sometimes we lose, but sometimes we win. And that is important for us. Voting for today in Goa doesn't make any sense because your politician whom you elected is going to join another party. So there's no point in voting anymore.
So then where do we get a government which is pro-people? If all this happens, then how do you ultimately,
the
will you go
people-
on fighting for the rest of your life? You need to have a regime that is pro-you, isn't it?
Well, India is in turmoil. We cannot help it. Other places they are very quiet, but in India at least people are showing that this democracy is alive. There are people fighting. Sometimes you might have to fight for 50 years. There in Europe had a 100 years war. There are all sorts of things that go on. We have been fighting with the Pakistan people now for more than I don't know how many years, more than 100 years. So we'll go on fighting. Fighting is not a bad sign. Fighting means that you are not a bloody corpse. You are not dead. You are alive. That is what fighting means. And you are very fact that you are fighting for the things that what Goa means to all of us, what it means, how we have to hand it over to the next generation in the way we found it. Okay, some portions are gone, but how do we protect the others? Those fights are very important, and it's very important that more and more young people invest their lives in this, because there's no point in getting a job if you find that when you come out after a job that there's nothing left for you to enjoy. It's all gone.
Yes, of course.
So there's one more thing.
Yeah.
See, it's not only in ESA that we're talking now, mobs are being, you talk about the taxi fares. Okay, mobs are going to decide the taxi fares. There should be some just this thing, just livelihood. My livelihood means I can this thing. Then you talk about the shack locations. When NIO is giving reports after reports saying that the footfall on the beaches are damaging this, people are saying no, amcha pot. Okay.
Correct.
So
correct.
who is going to have this rationalization?
Sand dunes are completely gone.
Amcha
completely.
pot,
Correct.
yes.
Yes.
But how many people can feed themselves in that place, and how long your pot will be filled?
Correct.
Okay. Is it only the pot of means the stomach of a few people to go to Europe during holidays, have with their families, and then finally the rest of the people destroyed, And I think also there's a beautiful quote. It was made by an Environment Minister of Australia. He said, "We have not inherited this earth from our forefathers, but borrowed it from our children." Okay. Are we only living for today? Certain people feel they have an entitlement now to Sattari, as if their forefathers have brought that land there. Okay. This is not their land. Okay. We have to think that there is a future generation to come.
Sure, absolutely. Ravindra, your last words.
Yeah, so see, basically what just Sir have mentioned, that we have to think about the future generations, because we are, as far as I understand from what is happening presently in Goa, we are only concerned about the present generation, what I am going to get now, and we are least bothered about tomorrow. So in order to see if the environment is saved, if these mountains are saved, if this forest is saved, then only I think our future will be saved. So that's the reason why all the environment friendly laws, just like the apart from Indian Forest Act, Conservation Act, and this Wildlife Protection Act, we also have to strengthen the Biodiversity Management Act 2002. Then we are having Forest Arts Act. Then we are having the present draft notification, which are we presently discussing on.
Right,
because these are our responsibilities. Because in the Constitution of India, just like I mentioned last time also, with the Constitution of India has also given us the responsibilities to as a citizen of India, and I think we have to stick to that, and we need to work towards the interest of the future generation.
And people have to know, Sujoy, this is dengue, malaria are the result of all this development which these TCP and these ministers are giving us. No use crying that people are dying of dengue, people are dying of malaria. This is all part of this development. And if you want more dengue and more malaria, you keep supporting and destroying ESAs.
Unfortunately, we've run out of time and we've come to the end of yet another conversation. Again, as we say, that this will probably be just one of the bricks in the whole foundation for a better Goa, and a Goa that we can recover from what we've lost. Ultimately, we all go back, and whenever anybody talks about Goa and gets nostalgic, we go back 20 years, we go back 15 years. With each passing year, we need to go back further and further number of years. But ultimately, Goa was a very self-sufficient place, self-sufficient economy. The villages were strong. The villages used to be the universe of everybody's existence. Planning used to be decentralized and local, and so on and so forth. But I think the biggest albatross around our neck is this 5-letter word called greed. That encompasses everything. The issue here is when you have literally state-sponsored violations of existing laws, and state sponsors opposition to court orders which are protecting those laws, then we surely have a problem. And one would say that, look, this has become completely endemic, and it is very, very critical for people, especially who are ruling the system, to introspect very seriously. Because what happens is, it is not just about you being in power for 5 years or 10 years or 15 years. Because every tree you cut, every slope you destroy, every coastal area that you completely crush, ultimately you're taking it away from your future generations. And Goa cannot be, and if this happens, Goa will ultimately become a big wasteland with nothing left to look forward to. And ultimately, beyond everything else, you're killing the basic goose that is Goa. People will not come to Goa if Goa does not remain Goa and becomes a Dharavi or Andheri East and so on and so forth. With all due respect to those people and places, and people, but for Goa to remain intrinsic, you need to protect it. And as Claude says, the fight must go on. But I would also say the fight surely should go on. But ultimately, it needs to, environmental protection and protection of Goa needs to become a big mandate during elections, because that is the only part of democracy that a politician kind of likes or fears, as the case may be, because everything boils down to whether we can win the next election or not. And people need to use that weakness, as it were, to the advantage of Goa. And that is very, very critical. It's not about A party or B party or C party, because at the end of the day, we have to be party agnostic and ultimately be a devotee of Goa that has kept Goa alive for so long. I thank all the panelists for all the views and discussions, and I hope this takes the whole debate forward for the future of Goa. Thank you.